Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer and as a designer on Ravelry as Skeindeer Knits. And do not forget to join the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to take part in knit-alongs and just the chatter, the community, potential giveaways and pattern support. Did I say that? Anyway, it is kind of the community platform for this podcast, this talk show, this knitting babble that I do weekly or bi-weekly depending. So to new viewers, that's basically what I do. Welcome. I hope you will stick around. I just show people what I knit, what I design, purchases and so forth. And to returning viewers, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back here. What do I have to talk about today? Oh, admin. I always start off with a bit of admin, the knit-alongs I run, and then I will dive straight into stuff that I have knitted since last time. So, admin. I run 2 knit-alongs for the time being. I run the year-long knit-along of 2019, which has kicked off at the beginning of January. The rules are you must to participate, knit 6 pairs of colourwork mittens that have to be started and finished in 2019. The other knit-along that just kicked off is a branching out knit-along that is just for the sake of participation. I haven't put in any finishing rules as of yet, and that is the second language cal, which is about, branching out to patterns that maybe you wouldn't normally use. It started out with me getting quite a few emails from Norwegian knitters who are like, oh, your patterns are in English. I'm not sure I can do that. I mean, I know English, but knitting in English? And I'm like, if you know language and you don't knit from it ever, do it now. Now you have an excuse and you will be in a price draw for it even. But I realized that the issue can be much broader than that. It can be people who only knit English language patterns, say, and they never ventured into Japanese patterns or say Norwegian patterns or what have you. So, it's really what you make of it kind of cal. So those are the 2 knit-alongs that I am running currently. The second language cal, the only rules is that you start in 2019. I don't have any specific finishing rules. Just make sure you get a good chunk done, to get the language experience. So yeah, that's that. I excitingly have 2 finished objects this week, none of which you will have seen before because they were quick enough to knit since last time. And that is basically 2 hats, none of which were super quick, mind you, but they're still hats, so the first hat is actually the most beautiful knitted hat I have ever done. Dare I say the most beautiful hat pattern in the world. Big words, but let me show you. That was my calendar apparently deciding that it's still January and not February. How rude. So the most beautiful hat in the world, if I may say so. I mean, can you even? I did just say that. This is the Knitting Season hat by Kate Davies from her Knitting Season collection. Now Kate Davies does this pretty much every year. She will around this time start a pattern collection that you can join through her website, and then she will liaise with Ravelry and make sure you get the patterns as they are released in this collection. And they come out quite rapidly, and so most of it I think has already come out. We got several garments and accessories there already, and I fell head over heels in love with this hat. I mean, can you blame me? It's amazing, it's so gorgeous, I can't deal. So yeah, it is very intricate, definitely requires a lot of focusing. I am so glad I got Knit Companion on my tablet so I can follow the chart quite easily. I can definitely recommend that, or those Knit Pro like chart readers that are more analog, shall we say. Okay, I'll try it on. I ruined my beautiful hair day today. It's really just nice because I washed it. So there we are. This is the hat. Oh my god, it fits me so well. So the only modifications I did, I actually went with a recommended needle size, I think, for the rib, and then I went up a little bit for the gauge of the hat so that it fits my ginormous head. Because as we discussed last week, it's massive. It's like 23 inches. Sometimes it measures even more depending on where I measure. Yeah, so that's the hat. Nice slouch. Really loving the slouch. I'm not sure I'm not wearing it properly. Oh, it's so gorgeous. I'm just like, I am totally gonna wear this in Edinburgh because, oh yeah, I'm going and I got tickets. Thank you, person who knows who to be thanked. Actually 2 people helped me out. One for the Sunday entrance and one for like a 3-day pass thing. So I am going to be at Edinburgh and I'm going to be sporting this hat, and I hope not to be the only one, because usually that's the case when Kate Davies has launched some pattern or collection or something ahead of Edinburgh. Lots of people are wearing it there. I saw a lot of Carbettes last year, so hope we're gonna get to see some hat siblings out there. Anyway, the yarn I use, I'm gonna take it off now, is Harrisville Shetland yarn. Now this yarn was given to me by Kristen of the Wool and Wine podcast when she went to, not the last Rhinebeck festival, but the one before that, the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. She bought me 2 skeins of Harrisville Shetland, just out of the generosity of her heart, and thank you so much, Kristen. I've been given a lot of yarn throughout the years, and I don't think anyone's been this spot on with my yarn and colour preferences. It's perfect. I couldn't have made a better choice. Like, I just love it, and especially for this hat. And the way this yarn blocks out as well, like it's quite crisp and sort of, it feels kind of hard-ish spun in the yarn. Like, this is the yarn, and even though Harrisville are the ones that spin loft, this does not feel like loft. It's quite, yeah, hard, not itchy, just kind of hard, but not when it's been blocked into this beautiful hat. Didn't I mention it's beautiful? I'm kind of losing it over this. I mean, I can wholeheartedly recommend it as well. I mean, you all know that Kate Davies is one of my favorite designers, and I've already been lurking over the new hat collection that she put out earlier, and yeah, there's a lot of hats calling my name in that one, so it's weird maybe that I started with a hat from outside that collection, but I could not resist. I just could not resist. So I guess I can't think of more things to say about this hat now, other than it's gorgeous, Kate Davies is brilliant, and Kristen is super generous, and I had fun knitting it, and so on and so on. Time to move on to the other projects, although I really just want to hold this one up in front of the camera forever and ever and ever. I think that's my seam. Is that my seam? I think that's the beginning of the round. So now you know how it joins in the round, just in case you were worried. This is, I guess, is the front. Oh my god, it's so pretty. I can't. This is it's gonna be my podcast photo, right? But that's not the only hat I have made this week. Oh no, I finished this one yesterday and I started it the day before. Yeah, it's the top hat, top T-O-P-H, yeah, T-O-P-H. It's a hat designed by the genius that is Woolly Wormhead, and I mean genius, really. Okay, I haven't blocked this, so it doesn't look maybe so great, but this pattern is just genius. It's full on short rows. It's worked sideways, right? So you can see its garter in this direction, and it's just short rows. All these things are like when you turn back and forth and you work short rows, that's the name. So I mean, it's just brilliant. I have very oh yeah, and it's got a lot of ends to weave in case you don't want to have floats going, which I chose not to have for this case. So that was fun, but I did it for the podcast. Don't say I never weave in my ends, even though if you did say that, more often than not you would be accurate. So this is how it wears. Nice slouch tip again. Do love me a bit of slouch. Does that work? Yeah. It needs a good block, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know, I quite like it this way. I have always this fear that superwash is gonna just grow so much after blocking, and I know this fits me so well right now, but I also know it will inevitably grow into its blocking form if I don't, so I might as well. But I'm just so into this pattern. It was so much fun. Again, I did go up in gauge a little bit to fit my ginormous head, so pattern recommends, I think, 22 stitch gauge, and I probably went more towards 20, and that fit me really well. So there. Gauge grading, that's the thing. The pattern actually already gauge grade, yeah. It's got 2 sizes, one in 22 and one in 24 stitch gauge. So for me to go to 20 with the DK weight yarn, that's no big deal at all. So but I'm sure you want to hear about the yarn. So this is the yarn, right? Isn't that beautiful? This is going to be part of my acquisition section, so I'm just going to show you now. I know point in repeating, although I could talk about this yarn for quite some time, because this is from Stranded Dyeworks, which is the yarn dyeing company by my friend Amy Florence. Now I might be biased here because Amy is one of my closest friends, so you bear with me there, but yeah, this was her birthday present to me. These two lovely skeins in her BFL DK. Or DK BFL, I'm not sure. I love this yarn and I'm like desperately thinking for excuses to get a sweater quantity because it's just so lovely and well plied and round, and not to mention her colors, obviously. I love this base. Yeah, this is a new colorway. Let me see if I can remember the name. Well, it doesn't say, Amy. You haven't made a sticker for that. But the other one is Cornerstone. So, who knows which the other one is. It's not Wellington Boot, in case you're wondering. This is a different green. So there's plenty left. I don't know what to do with what's left. I may need to weigh them and see if there can need to be a single colored hat, for instance. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put this in a scrap bag. Like, this is a considerable amount of yarn. So this is, yeah, the top hat by Woolly Wormhead. Absolutely brilliant designer. I loved reading through that pattern. It made a lot of sense, and it was way more than any pattern should have to be, with lots of tutorials and well explained things, yet being concise and clear, and everything that I love about a good pattern. And she also had charted out the short rows rather than giving you written instructions. You really know where you're at throughout, and I really liked seeing it because I've never been taught how to chart short rows. I just do it for myself privately in Excel when I plan out a pattern, say a short row heel and shoulders, which I will get back to, and things like that. And it was quite nice to see that Woolly Wormhead pretty much does it the exact same way. There was like one small difference, but that's it. We really do. I guess that means that I am charting my short rows in a sort of standardized manner, which is good to know because I am planning a pattern that has short row instructions that I think it's probably wise of me to chart, and I will get to that momentarily. But yeah, anyway, thanks to the person who gifted me this pattern, by the way. That was a viewer who gifted to me for a present. I think it was back for the Grant Your Wishes thing, so thank you. And thanks to Amy for giving me her precious yarn, and thanks to Woolly Wormhead for just writing an amazing pattern. That was so much fun. But I am not done talking about the hats yet. No. This one I was actually knitting on last time as well, but for some reason I forgot to mention it. And that is the Nylon hat. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's a Swedish word. Nylon. I mean, look at that. This has been in my queue for longer than I want to admit, and it's just jaw-droppingly beautiful. Like, I can't even. Yes, I did say that again. Oh dear. But I'm gonna put in a photo of the finished item because it might be a bit hard to imagine from here. But it's got color work and cables, which is probably why it's intimidating me just a little bit. I don't usually feel like I can't knit something, but I am pretty good at pushing it off if I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a bit of a challenge. So it is taking its sweet time for sure. One round does take a bit of time. I have found it helped me to go with a longer right hand needle, so instead of using my usual 16-inch 40cm circulars that are fixed, which I prefer for sleeves and used to prefer for hats, but lately I've actually found it's nicer if the right hand needle is longer. So I have put together a knit pro cable that's supposed to make a 60cm needle, and one needle that should make it so, but on the left hand I put one that's made for a 16-inch circular, or they could make one if you put on a cable for it. So altogether it means it's less than my head circumference, which we kind of agree it's quite big, and it all works pretty well, and it's a lot more comfortable to knit. So yeah, long interchangeable needle for the right hand and a short interchangeable needle for the left hand, and a cable that's supposed to make a 60cm needle. Hope that made sense. But yeah, cable and color work in one go. It's possible. Like on the back you just see floats, and on the front you see the cables. Genius. And it's so beautiful as well. And I am using stash. I'm using a lot of stash lately. The Harrisville as well was stash from 2017. So yeah, this is Finkoff yarn. That was one of the, I think it was the first swap I ever did with a very early podcast viewer. And I've sort of been waiting for things to make with it. I even tried to make the Quello mittens in it, but because this is a sport weight, it did become a little bit short in the row gauge. So I found that this was perfect for the hat. Well, I think so. I haven't actually measured my row gauge. But this pattern warrants a thinner yarn, a finer yarn, so I actually think this could give me a bit of extra length, which is something my head usually needs, because not only is it like wide, it's also quite long, and it's just... Anyway, so that's the yarn I'm using. Thank you so much to the person who swapped it with me. You were super generous. We did 2 swaps and it was amazing. So that's what I have there, and can't promise it's going to be finished the next time we see each other, because it just takes a long time, but it's worth it. Now I have no idea why it's so dark today. I put on my studio lights because it suddenly just got really clouded. We did have snow last night, so that's made it really nice and bright and white. The snow is nearly gone, but it sort of stayed in the air somehow, like the air just felt really crisp. But it's gotten really clouded. Anyway, next project is a design. Yes, I cast on another garment. This has been in my head for quite some time. I have been wanting to reinvent this sort of traditional style of sweater in a top-down manner that is a bit more feminine, although it will be very easy to make more masculine should you wish to. I'm not going to make any shaping or such. It's just going to yeah, have a bit of a sort of feminine length and such, but then you just knit it longer and you can make it for anyone. So regardless, let me show you. This is what's on my needle. Oh my god, I love the feel of this yarn. This is Vilja, which is probably my favorite yarn. It would be anyway if the colors were a bit more diverse. There's not that many colors in the range currently, but I've heard whispers that it may change. Maybe we can hope. And this is what it looks like. Vilja is by Hillesvåg, by the way, just FYI. But yeah. So what is this mess? What is this? Is it a sweater? How's that? Well, it's a drop shoulder. It's a drop shoulder, and this pattern may be familiar to those of you who are from Norway, although I have heard people from the British Isles as well recognize this as what we call in Norway Islender, which Icelandic people say, what? I don't recognize that. What? It's got nothing to do with Iceland. I don't know why we call it an Icelander essentially, but there you go. It's the Norwegian fisherman sweater. Pretty classic one. Like, you know, some people have Aran sweaters, some have Gansies, you know, there's the Dutch Gansie, things like that, and this is the Norwegian Islander. And it usually uses sort of Aran weight yarn, very densely knit, very thick yarn, and I wanted to make, like I said, a bit more of a feminine take on it, so I used fingering weight lamb's wool. So not only is it quite light, but it's also so soft. Yeah, you could use Fiedel as well, you could use whole super soft. I mean, let's think about that when the pattern comes out, shall we? But it is a bit of a pain to start with. How is that for an advertisement? Because as you can see, there is something like kind of like a staircase here. That is because I built the shoulders with short rows. I have borrowed some ideas from the ziggurat construction and some from bottom-up drop shoulder designs that I've knitted lately, and it's a pain to do in color work. That is the one thing that is kind of novel here. It works, but that is why I think I need to chart this similar to the top hat. I think that's gonna work. I think that will make life easier. I've written down the written instruction, but it's like if you get anything wrong, then your color work that you start up here will be all off down here. So I think I will chart it for every size, which is a lot. There's a lot of size. I think I'm going with 15 or 16 or something. Why do I do this to myself? Well, because size diversity is important. All sizes. As many as I can fit in anyway. So I actually messed up properly, so I'm gonna fix this in the pattern. But basically, when the steek for the armhole is bound off, because the armhole is finished, and you just join in the round underneath, the pattern's not gonna line up. I really thought I was being clever here and made it lined up, but no, the boxes are gonna be facing the other boxes instead of one of these diagonal lines. I'll fix that in the pattern, but I'm not frogging this thing because there's a lot of hours gone in already. The other thing that's quite interesting here is the neckline, because it used to be attached here. So you were making this and thinking this is the neck opening, and that can't be right, but there's a steek here, and you cut it open and voila. Huh. I'm doing this a lot lately. My Kosekofte also has this, the new massive cardigan that's going to come out sometime soon, I think. So yeah, steeked neckline opening so that you can continue across here. There's very few ends basically, and that is kind of the main thing that I am borrowing from the ziggurat method, which will be credited, no doubt. There's one end for starting with the white, only one. Nothing for the fronts, just you start with the back and then you cross it for the fronts, and then there you go. There's two ends for the black because it needs to be joined a separate place for the front and the back, just because of the short rows. So that's pretty much all the ends that I have so far. There will be another two whites and blacks for the beginning and the end of the sleeves each. Apart from that, very few ends. Isn't that nice? And when you spit splice, which you can do with this yarn or comparable yarns, yeah, very few ends. And I love already how the sweater looks in my mind. It's gonna be sort of not crop, well, kind of cropped, a long crop, but again, you can easily just knit it longer and shorter. There's nothing important happening anywhere there that you can't just adjust the length with in the most intuitive ways. Yeah, I am kind of measuring a store-bought sweater that I live in nowadays and trying to get the same sort of fit, and I think that's going to be really good. And there might be a series of these in other sort of patterns, wink wink. So exciting. Don't know when this is going to come out. It's just a thing I could not keep myself from casting on any longer. It's been in my mind for so long. Yeah, it's going to have this pattern throughout. The whole thing is just going to have this pattern. Very eager to see people when they get the pattern themselves come up with other colors for this, maybe inverting it, burgundy. So that's something I look forward to seeing. And the Afterparty sweater, which I still haven't made a Ravelry page for. I need to get on that. Anyway, as you saw last time we saw each other, it had sleeves. I finished the sleeves very quickly. That was no big deal at all. But the body, oh, it's come a long way since last time. But there's like 6 or so inches left, or 5 now maybe. I can only hope. That's like 15 centimeters. Might be down to 13 centimeters to go now, but yeah, it's just a lot of stockinette in the round. There's a lot of Netflix that's being worked through here. That's just it. I know it looks awfully see-through and weird now, but that's just the nature of Holst. Once you wash it, it's just not see-through anymore, or at least not half as much. This was from the 6th issue of Lane magazine. It's from the Biches and Bouches people, Osteri something. I can't pronounce the yarn name without sounding a little bit rude, so anyway, really enjoyable to knit. Very much in my comfort zone, albeit not top down, but I'm dealing with it. And it's weird with me because I really prefer top down, but I do recognize that a bottom up sweater, especially a yoke, does keep me going for it's like, I want to get to the yoke, I want to get to the yoke. Whereas if it's top down, I'm like, well, I've done the yoke now, I've done the fun bits. What's the incentive here? So there's no logic as to why I prefer top down, really. I mean, apart from being able to adjust the length of the yoke, I think that's quite important. So there is, I guess, some logic to that. Yeah, just knitting on this thing. This is a gift knit to someone I haven't even talked to in ages, just because she's gonna like it and it's a surprise. Did I mention it was Holst super soft? Anyway, if there's any details I didn't put in with that sweater, you can watch the last episode I did. Not the half episode with the giveaway, but the proper last one. 94, I think. I do have one last project to show you. Again, using stranded yarn. me and Amy are good friends, but she doesn't usually like throw yarn after me, but apparently this is the episode where I'm knitting with her yarn twice. This is with a sort of naive goal of having this pattern out for her vending at Unravel, which is probably not going to happen, but I can keep trying, right? So this is the pattern. This is what it's looking like. Okay, I'm gonna put this under my arm. This is gonna be elegant. It's a sock that's got a stockinette foot with a much smaller stitch count than what you get for the leg. I have put a lot of thought into how to do this. So basically the gusset starts a little bit under the foot instead of on the side as you usually do, so that there's more stitches up here than down here. That will make sense when you knit the pattern. And then there's color work for the leg only, so you can get it over your heel easily. The sock should fit fine. People who are worried about having color work in their shoes don't have to worry, even though you never really have to worry, because me and like everyone I know wear color work socks in their shoes all the time, and it doesn't add much bulk, so I'm not sure where that myth came from. But seeing as people believe in it, I'm just gonna make a pattern that hopefully they're not too worried about. So that's how that's gonna look. This pattern repeat is just gonna continue all the way. And yeah, I'm using her Anti-Valentine colorway with the First Frost colorway, which seems very appropriate today. And I have no idea what they're going to be called. I have no idea when I started the test knit, but you will probably find out on Instagram if I put out a call. Yeah, not much else to say really. I should be knitting a little more than I am. I should be. So you will have already seen the yarn that I have in my Aquisitions for the top hat. So really all I have for Aquisitions today is 3 books, kind of. These are the books. So thanks to a viewer who I haven't even thanked yet. I'm thanking you publicly before I actually find the message that you sent me. I was directed to a Faroese bookshop that was in Faroese that I don't know, but I managed to look up knitting books in Faroese and I found these 3. This turned out not to be a book at all. It's like a guide for the Faroese island that's called Faroese Knitting, and it's just got things about knitting in the Faroese Islands. So I'm going to be reading through that. That shouldn't take too long. And this book, which is Førøysk Bindingarmynstur. This is my Faroese. But the funny thing about Faroese is like when I actually try to read it and I kind of squint a bit, I do understand what they mean. So this one's got just a bunch of charts, really. Yeah, I love it. I'm really glad I got hold of this. Now for this book, I actually have this book on my shelf already because a lovely friend of mine let me borrow hers and I instantly realized I need this book. So it was very fortunate that my viewer had basically this book in mind when directing me to that shop, and she recommended this book as well, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's about Faroese shawls. I love it. And I just want to demonstrate my Faroese language skills here because there is a chapter where I just like decided to start reading a bit of Faroese, and I was like, som så många andra föröiska husmödrar har vi genom många bundit föröisk plagg. I'm like, excuse me? But what it says is, as many other Faroese housewives, I have often knitted Faroese garments. I'm like, I can read Faroese. New superpower. It sits somewhere in between Norwegian, Danish and Icelandic, and I have no idea what Icelandic is when I read it. I'm just like, what is this? But Faroese apparently. So I can read this book, but it's also mostly charts, so that's good. So that ending didn't quite work out. It's a couple of days later and I am now taking the opportunity to re-record in order to touch upon the really important conversation that's been going on Instagram for weeks now about racism. And particularly about racism in the knitting community. Now, I have been much more vocal about this on Instagram, but so far not really been able to touch upon it here because my episodes thus far have been pre-recorded. And so I think it's important that we talk about this because people of color in the knitting community have been made to feel other, they've been excluded, they have just not really been treated as integral part of this community. And so I want to make it absolutely clear that this podcast is fundamentally anti-racist. This podcast, this brand, me, I am anti-racist. and there's just no tolerance for racism on this platform. So I hope that is clear. I don't want anyone to feel or wonder whether this is a safe space for them. This is a place where you are welcome. People of color, like I said, are an integral part of this community. Everyone here is welcome, and that also extends of course to other diversities and just everyone in general, but with a particular recognition to those who are often left out. Not here, not in the Skeindeer Knits podcast, and not in the Skeindeer Knits community. And for viewers who have problems with me bringing this up on the podcast, this is likely going to happen again in the future, that I will be discussing racism and other issues of exclusion and lack of diversity. So if that is something you have problems with, the door is there and you really don't have to make a big splash on your way out. This is really, really, really important, and I cannot stress that enough. And like I said, a fundamental part of what I stand for, and I'm not going to be shy about that. And I also want to comment on the comment section down below. Of course, people are allowed to comment, but I do want to ask you to be careful, be kind, be constructive, and consider that in all likelihood individuals of color will be reading your comments, so please be mindful of that. I do not want the comment section to become a war zone by any means, so keep it civil. And if you don't want to comment about this at all, that is fine. You can comment on all the other content of this episode instead. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to make a huge just proclamation of gratitude to everyone who have been outspoken on Instagram, of all the individuals of color who have shared their stories and really just turned their emotions inside out for us to really understand what is going on. It really shouldn't be necessary, but I am nonetheless very grateful for what they have done. And I want to issue a huge thanks to two individuals in particular who are fabulous people, and that is Gigi Made It and Creative Ceci, or Cici depending, on Instagram. They have both been instrumental in educating me and others about this, and I highly encourage you to pay attention to what they post on Instagram, and as ever, be kind. There's no point in filling up anyone's inboxes about this stuff. Just listen. I will wrap this up by saying that I am open to suggestions from people of color about what I can do to be better. I have been wrecking my brain about this for the past weeks, ever since this hit Instagram full force, and I do have a couple of things in mind. I am engaging in a lot of conversation. I am spending a lot of time thinking about it, and I'm just putting it out there that I am open to suggestions. So yeah. That is what I have to say for now. It will no doubt come up again in the future, and overall, thank you all so much for watching this episode. And I want to in particular thank all the individuals who are people of color who have been with me, even when I maybe haven't made it crystal clear where my stance is in all this. Thanks for still being here, and I hope I can make it worthwhile for you from now on as well. So yeah, thanks to everyone for watching, and I will be seeing you next time I record. Bye.